Classic Plus isn't being made for you. It's from a YouTuber named Aki. He has one upload, which is this. And he actually was one of the viewers and came into the channel and came into the Discord and linked it. And he said, like, this is not self-promo, but it like was his own video. And so I didn't watch it. This was like a week ago because I thought it was self-promo. And then a bunch of you guys came over to the Discord and said, no, this video rocks. So since it isn't self-promo, I don't think, video's kind of blowing up. It has a very interesting title. Classic Plus isn't being made for you. And a lot of people have been telling me to watch it. So
Attribution Paladin, you're finally...
Let's check it out. I must say, bro, first YouTube video, 100K plus banger, keep it up. That's very impressive. Like, that's incredibly impressive. So Classic Plus isn't being made for you. All right. So who's it being made for? Mr. AK, let's check it out.
You already know what Classic Plus is going to be, right? Junior Dungeons, the old unfinished zones, Kerosene Crypts, a Retribution Paladin you're finally allowed to bring to the raid. You're wrong.
Oh.
And not even in the small way. In the way where the thing you...
He just says hi to someone running by. Okay. I'm wrong, huh? It seems like a lot of that stuff would be good. I don't know, like being able to play some new content with some new specs and like, okay, what's going on here then?
Been waiting for isn't even being made for you at all. For years, whenever anyone asked Blizzard whether there would ever be a World of Warcraft 2, the answer was some version of the same thing. Not now, maybe never. We don't need one. I think they're building one right now. I think it's called Classic Plus or Camelot, and I think it exists so that retail can finally stop pretending. Let me get the boring.
Okay, so this is a very interesting claim. The way I think about retail right now, in a simplistic term, is that retail is WoW 2, right? It barely resembles WoW 1, which is say like Classic or something. And the game has continued to evolve, and there's expansion packs, which quite literally means WoW 2, WoW 3, right? Like we're playing it already. That's retail. I would even go further and make the claim that that retail is actually not WoW 2, but WoW 3 or WoW 4, right? WoW 1 in my head is classic TBC Wrath, right? WoW 2 might be like that Kata Mop WoD, right? WoW 3, the period after that, and WoW 4 maybe started with like Dragonflight. So maybe we're in like WoW 4 right now. Like that's kind of how I think about it, to be honest, right? So you want to play WoW 1, it's like the original trilogy. Like that's just how I think, right? But let's hear this guy out on his claim. That it is actually an interesting claim that he thinks Classic Plus will be WoW 2. Huh.
Part of the way first. Like, I'm not spending 10 minutes telling you something you already believe in.
Okay.
Classic Plus is coming, and it's called, internally at least, Camelot. 29 encrypted builds since October 25, on a branch of a client from July 2006. License entries found in June, heroic and epic. And back in January, Holly Longdale said we'd get clarity on Classic's future at BlizzCon, then got 4 words into an announcement before someone just cut her off.
And that's not all we're cooking up. I can say with confidence that all Classic players across the globe have a lot to look forward to. I'm really excited to announce that... I guess we'll save that for later.
You know all this.
Hype.
The community solved it months ago.
Yeah.
So here's the part nobody says out loud.
Okay.
Purchased tiers don't prove ambition. Burning Crusade had heroic and epic upgrades. So did Wrath. So did Cataclysm. $30 or $80, I don't know. Those were re-releases. The same game with a new coat of paint sold in 2 tiers. So the data mine gets you to, it's a paid release. It doesn't get you to, it's a big one. So which one is Camelot? Call the small version Classic Plus Lite, the community wishlist. Vanilla again, plus 2 new dungeons, the unfinished zones finished, a balance pass so your Retribution Paladin finally gets his raid spot, a better vanilla, but still just vanilla. So will it be Classic Plus Lite or maybe something else entirely? The files can't answer that. Nobody sleek can. You have to actually reason about it. So let's reason about it.
Cool.
Why would Blizzard build a second version of their game, even when they've spent a decade explaining why they don't need one? And it's not like they've never tried. Back in the Burning Crusade era, Blizzard quietly started building a second MMO, codenamed Titan. Not WoW 2, a new world entirely, staffed up at the height of WoW's success. 7 years and $80 million later, and it collapsed without ever becoming a game. The team that survived got 6 weeks to pitch something new.
Crazy.
The wreckage became Overwatch.
Overwatch, yeah.
That's the scar tissue behind every We don't need a second one. Answer since they built a second ship once, and it sank in the harbor. In 2024, game director Ian Hasekostas was asked directly whether there would ever be a WoW 2. His answer wasn't no, it was a philosophy problem. Theoretically, at some long distant point down the line, that may be a question we grapple with seriously. We're constantly tearing out some old foundation systems and replacing it with something that will scale to support a new server architecture, to support new graphics pipelines. That's the ship of Theseus.
I was just gonna say this, dang it, I should have paused 1 second sooner. Ah! Oh my gosh. So yeah, if you replace every plank of a ship, at what point is it a new ship, right? Oh my gosh, I was just about to say this. That's basically was my original claim, right? So retail, you've replaced every little tiny thing of retail with new tech, right? It barely resembles the first thing that was World of Warcraft. At which point is it not World of Warcraft? At what point is it WoW 2? And it's a good philosophical question. Everyone's going to give you a different answer, but it's really good to think about, right? Which was kind of like my original claim. You have this like WoW 1 era, right, of the classic TBC Wrath. And then once you start replacing more and more and more, it almost resembles something new entirely. And there's nothing wrong with that. But as you start replacing every single plank of the ship, like, are we still going to call it the same old ship? Right? It's almost silly to. But in the essence, in the spirit, it's like, well, it kind of is. So it's something interesting to grapple with, right?
Replace every plank one at a time, and you never ever need a second ship, because the first one was never really one fixed thing to begin with. It's a genuinely good argument, and for 20 years, that was the real answer. WoW 2 is being built right now, one plank at a time, inside the ship called Retail WoW. But run that forward.
Yeah.
20 years of plank swapping, and you just gotta ask the question, where is the new ship? And the old one? Show a 2006 player screenshot of Retail today, let them play it, and they wouldn't recognize the game.
The first pull of the dungeon is massive.
Yeah, exactly. Wait, hold on. That was my exact point, right? That's exactly what we're saying. Retail has been WoW, but they've replaced the entire ship at this point. So now it's like, it doesn't really resemble it anymore. Right? Like that's exactly my claim.
2 gatekeepers, every pack of mobs available to be tagged within range, and of course, the first boss, Blightbone. With Bloodlust and every offensive cooldown active, the group peaks at nearly 80 million DPS, destroying every enemy, including the boss, in less than 30 seconds. Importantly, the group also needs to use nearly every defensive cooldown. 2 Wraths of Zalormus casts being channeled by the Gatekeepers in addition to the Heaving Wretch from Blightbone could easily one-shot a player in the group if they were to also get targeted by a random Throw Flesh cast from the myriad of enemies in the pool.
No new WoW ever launched. And the one that exists isn't the one anyone remembers. Somewhere along the way, the wrong planks went in. And that's the weakness in the whole argument. It only works if you don't keep the original ship. Which brings up the real question. If you're going to sell people vanilla again in 2026, what exactly is it you think you're selling? Not the graphics, not the class balance. Nobody is nostalgic for 45-minute mana breaks. It's 4 things. Progress that's slow enough to be worth something. Progress that doesn't get deleted next patch. A world small enough to have a story you're actually inside of. Local conflicts, a war you can walk to, instead of another galactic god. And this, you see somebody at level 5, 15 levels later you end up in a dungeon with them by accident, and you recognize the name. They've helped you with a quest once, and so you hand them over the item you just won on the roll. And that's what people remember about this game. Not, I cleared this Mythic Plus dungeon in 22 minutes and 31 seconds and got item level 253 bracers with 302 haste. Nobody remembers.
I will disagree a little bit here. There's different types of players. There's the type of player that loves Mythic Plus, and hey, it's a lot of people. I think discrediting it and saying nobody remembers their loot from Mythic Plus or a specific run is maybe a little too overkill. Because there are players, of course, that I know that do remember their best runs and crazy loot and crazy stories from Mythic Plus, and that's awesome, right? Mythic Plus is really cool. It's just a different spin-off. It's a different genre. It's a different objective. It's a whole different thing, and that's fine. This is what took me a long time to come to terms with. I think for a long time I was like, oh, retail's not what I want it to be. And it was like this really tough thing for me. And then at some point a few years ago, I was just like, oh, it has all this other great stuff. And if I want it, it's there. And if not, I can go play Classic, which is what WoW is to me. Done, right? I have Classic, which is WoW, and I have Retail, which is, let's not call it WoW, let's call it Retail. It's different offerings. Right, so it took me a while to get there, and now that I'm here, I'm like, okay, nice. It's much healthier to look at it, right?
I must say, when people think back on the good old times in the game, it's the connections, the random encounters, the name you started to recognize, never the numbers. And that's one of the things Blizzard thinks retail players are afraid of losing. But in retail, it was lost a long time ago. And that's exactly what Classic Plus is being built to hold and preserve. And here's the question that's most relevant right now. Why build this now? Why 2026? And no, Classic hasn't just been sitting there since 2019. Season of Discovery was the test run. New abilities on old classes, new raids carved into old zones, new content inside Vanilla's world. For 2 years, Blizzard tried to figure out what worked and what didn't. But notice what Season of Discovery was. A season. Included in the subscription. Temporary by design. And notice what Camelot is. A product, with price tags in the files. That's the order you'd expect. You run the experiment first, then you build the thing. But the big thing. Which brings us back to the ship. Blizzard kept the original. Now they're rebuilding it, and putting a price on it. And the moment the old ship exists as its own product, the new one doesn't have to pretend anymore. Look at the timing. Classic Plus lands. Most likely in 2026, the last Titan will be announced at BlizzCon as well. The expansion Chris Metzen called the culmination of the first 20 years of World of Warcraft storytelling arrives around 2027 and runs for roughly 2 more. And that's a 3-year window where both things are live at once. Classic Plus and The Last Titan. And I don't think retail stops being the flagship. I think this is the cheapest chance Blizzard will ever get to find out what WoW should be. With one version holding the thing people are afraid to lose, and the other one finally allowed to move.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's actually pretty darn well said, right? Like, so in my mind, I've already done this. I don't think of retail as WoW anymore. And I know that pisses people off, but that's okay. That's how I think about it. I don't think about retail as WoW anymore. If I want retail, I'm going to go in for something like Mythic Plus. I'm going to go in for Mythic raids or heroic raids to just get to the end content. I'm not looking at it as that original WoW that I fell in love with. And guess what? Because I'm not thinking about it as WoW, I can actually enjoy it. Because if I think about it as WoW, it's the nonstop comparisons to my childhood game, the nonstop comparisons to classic, vanilla, all these different things. But once I break free from the mold of this needs to be my WoW, and instead, let's just call it retail, like literally instead of calling it WoW, just call it retail. Pretend its name is retail. Oh, this game's fun. It's modern and it's different. Cool. This is pretty sweet. So that's what I've been doing the last many, many years mentally, and it's really helped me because I'm like, hey, I can enjoy both now. I have a modern version, not called WoW, just a modern MMO, and it's great. And if I want WoW, it's still there for me. So I've already done this, but I think for more people, this might be very helpful. You'll have Classic Plus, which will be your WoW, and then you'll have retail, which is its whole different thing. And since they have these two options, people will finally be able to kind of move on versus comparing, right?
Because look at what retail is still carrying. A leveling phase nobody wants to go through because it's pointless. You start as a god, you finish as a god, nothing is a challenge. You level so fast you can't even keep up with reading the spells of a new class you wanted to try. So you pay for the boost and skip it, you pay a boost or whatever, and Blizzard happily sells you the skip button for their own game. And at max level, the same shape repeats. In PvP, grind honor for the blue set, so you can queue ranked for the epic set until the checklist is done. There's a clear path for creating your character from start to finish, and it's been the same formula for expansions now. No item on the way is exciting because you know exactly what you get, and you never feel its impact. If it isn't replaced within the next 5 dungeons, it's gone next season anyway, so why care at all? Leveling and gearing in retail is friction, but not the good kind. Not the kind that makes classic rewarding. It's not challenging, it's not exciting, it's chores, it's doing laundry. You know the path, you know the outcome, you just have to put in time. Those systems stopped pulling their weight years ago. But Blizzard can't just rip them out. They are the last plank of the original ship still on board. The moment...
You know, like, so I don't know. I think I disagree here just a little bit. Like, I understand what he's trying to say, but I think that we have to nod for a second here and just be like, look, the model in which retail is following is still the largest MMO in the world, Western world, probably, you know, most likely, and a lot of people like it. Right? A lot of people like it a lot. Is it for me? Maybe not. Is it for everyone? No. Is it for those classic WoW Andies that loved classic WoW? No. Is it a true RPG feeling? No. But it does offer all this other stuff, right? Like a true endgame, for example. As something that you can endlessly grind in PvE like a Mythic Raid or like a Mythic Plus that scales infinitely in difficulty, right? They cut out the RPG elements on purpose, and I don't like that, but it does offer other stuff. So I think the whole idea of this just isn't good is not something I can get behind. It's more the offerings are completely different, and that's okay. Right?
The original exists as its own product, they can. And that's Classic Plus. And there's a second effect. Somebody who's heard for 20 years that WoW was special, who wants to know what all the fuss is about. Where do you send them? Not to Expansion 12, not to Midnight, not to The Last Titan. Chapter 12 doesn't explain the phenomenon. And today's new player experience is so confusing and so flat that most people who come looking just bounce off before the game even starts. You just send them back to the front door. Here's the thing, Blizzard might be about to make that question a lot more common. Remember that leaked roadmap? Camelot isn't the only thing on it. There's the new Warcraft RTS, and Arthur's ARPG, both set in the old story, not the new one. And Netflix is reportedly back at the table with Blizzard, after a lawsuit killed the first round of shows. None of this is announced. It's a leaked document and some reporting. But the Camelot data mine just confirmed a core entry on that exact document, which makes it a lot harder to dismiss. So just assume for a moment that it's real. Play it forward. Say, even half of it lands. Millions of people meet Warcraft through an RTS, an Arthur's game, a show, and then they want the world those stories live in. Where does Blizzard send them? To retail, where nothing is left of Arthur's, where the story stopped making sense 5 cosmic threads ago, where the first 10 hours are the worst part the game has to offer? Or to the original World of Warcraft, rebuilt and filled in. The world people fell in love with in the mid-2000s. The one that became a cultural phenomenon in the first place.
Yeah, that's exactly right. This has basically been my claim, and I have the copium take, I'll call myself out on cope here, that Classic Plus has the potential to be much larger than retail. Why? Because over the last 20 plus years of the Warcraft IP being World of Warcraft, I mean, you have Warcraft IP before that, so even longer. You have people that fell in love with this thing that no longer has the resemblance of being that thing anymore on retail, but you can build that in Classic Plus, and then you have this 100 million, 200 million players that have fallen in love with this world, but no longer recognize it in retail and will recognize it in Classic Plus. You have a much, much broader audience to market to than retail does. Right? So I have the copium take that it has the potential, if done right, to be much larger than retail. It really does. Or to fumble it and it sucks. That's the truth. I mean, it could just suck, right? So yeah, that's exactly right.
That's not a hard question, and Blizzard knows it. The obvious objection would be, this is a niche. Why would Blizzard spend so much time and resources building a game from 2004? Nobody wants slow anymore, and nobody wants to play a game with strangers anymore. Alright, I've got you, fair point. Let's look it up. Steam charts, Go to more. Counter-Strike 2, 800k. Dota 2, 689k. PUBG here, Palworld, Bongo. Bongo. What? Most of them drop you in with people you have never met. Rust has progression in PvP, Palworld is an RPG, and the other 2 or 3 or whatever that was. So the argument nobody wants to play with strangers isn't pessimism, it's just wrong. Millions of people do it every single day. Which leaves the other half of the objection, that nobody wants slow. Except the biggest genre story of the last 5 years is probably survival games. And survival games are slower than, well, almost everything else on the market. Look at the loop. You start as nobody, with a wooden pickaxe. Wood gets you stone. Stone gets you copper. Copper gets you iron. And iron gets you into the area that would have killed you an hour ago. Feels familiar? That's gray items into greens, into blues, into epics, and just moving from zone to zone. That's Vanilla Sloop wearing a different costume. Different name, different art, same machine. And Shrouded sold 1 million copies in 4 days. Palworld broke Steam records that had stood for years. Millions of people are voluntarily choosing a slower game than the one, like so many people say, nobody wants anymore. There's one thing those games can't give you though. You play them with people you already know. 4 of you, if you're lucky maybe 16. Strangers never accumulate. Nobody becomes familiar. That part only an MMO can do. And that's the part Classic Plus would be selling. And you can even see it in their own game. Hardcore. One life, no safety net.
Hey.
It started as a community rule set that Blizzard eventually made official. And it produced the biggest thing WoW had done on Twitch in a decade. OnlyFans pulled 3 million hours watched in a single week. Rolling Stone covered a vanilla death as a cultural event. Nobody watched it for the item level.
Kinda nuts.
BlizzCon is September 12th. You know, these are predictions, so I'll just skip the percentages and just tell you what I think Blizzard is doing. Classic Plus is not nostalgia season. It's being built to become the essence of World of Warcraft. The front door, the place you send someone who played the Arthas game, or watched the show, or just always wanted to know what the fuss was all about.
I completely agree. It becomes World of Warcraft, generally, by the standard of which most people remember it, because retail no longer resembles that. This is the exact claim I've been making. Absolutely. Yes. Right? Yes.
Paid release,
Totally.
new content in Old Azeroth, no story chain binding it to retail. That's the shape I expect. And you can hold me to it in September. And retail finally gets to move on. Bigger steps, its own identity. Free of the old systems it thought were load-bearing, and that turned out to be just ballast. One more reason the timing is no accident.
I like I said, I've already mentally freed up retail from that being chained to WoW many years ago. But I think for many people, this will do that, right? This will do that for them. But for me, like, it's like, yeah, like years ago, it's like that helped me a ton. Like, retail's its own thing now, right? It can be fun in its own way. Doesn't have to be WoW anymore. And that was helpful.
Riot is building an MMO. The day that ships, Blizzard needs to answer to why World of Warcraft? And with Classic Plus on one side and retail that's finally allowed to change on the other, 3 years from now, they'd have to. The bigger claim that Classic Plus exists so that retail can change, that one BlizzCon won't settle. That's a bet on the next 3 years, not on a keynote. I'll make the follow-up either way, including if I'm wrong on every count.
Can you imagine? He makes the follow-up
Attribution
video,
Paladin,
and he's like, all right, guys, I was wrong on every count. It's like just completely wrong. I really enjoyed this, man. That was a good video. I can't believe that was his first upload. Massive W. Lots of stuff I agreed with. Some points, of course, I pushed back on as well. I think the whole idea that retail sucks, they completely screwed it up, is like a little pigeonholed of a position. It's more like retail isn't for me anymore, and it's for other people that enjoy it, which is really cool, right? But it's not really what I look for in a game anymore. I fell out of love with it, with what it became, right? That's kind of my approach. Anyway, cool. Awesome video. Like I said, the creator of the video linked it to me, and I didn't watch it, and then like a bunch of you guys did. So I was like, all right, we'll add it to the watch later. There we go, man.